that Microsoft shit.
Why can't I open it in Chrome?
My phone, it doesn't have it on there.
There's no Chrome on this
I won't.
laptop.
No, remember it wouldn't. I couldn't use my laptop until I uninstalled it. But you can go to Google.com and log in. Also, say, give me a minute to get myself together.
Okay. Um, Trying to figure out how to work this stuff. Okay, so I'm trying to show you guys what I'm looking at. I'm trying to find out the best way to do this, and I think the best way to do it is just for y'all to read it yourself. Come on. All right. Sorry about this. I don't remember my password, so I gotta start over. Okay. Hmm. I'm not able to sign into my account. I'm not sure why. It's weird. Try this one more time. All right, I'm into my account. Let's just see if that let me bookmarks. Well, I thought I could save these and show them to you, but I guess I can't. So, they don't even let me get into it. That's crazy. I'm trying to save these more. I can see. Hopefully this works. Okay. Okay. I'm good. All right. Let's set this the wrong way. Okay, that should be small. All right. All right. Hopefully y'all can see what I'm seeing. I try to make this shorter, but it wouldn't allow me to do that. So I'm just gonna have y'all follow me. So, all right, let me just give you all an intro. So this is part two of what we were doing um, the other day, a couple of days ago, in which we were talking about. Let me come out of here. We were talking about the quote from Martin Luther King, and he said that he felt like he had integrated his people into a burning house. And since it's been 60 years, one of the questions me and Grounded had kicked around was, what has changed, what's gotten better, you know, how has it been since these what do you call it? These last 60 years since integration has happened. And one of the fears that Dr. King had was that the ways of the people that we lived, that before we were integrated, that we lived with but separated from, their ways were not like our ways. Their ways were angry and violent. And he was saying basically that he feared for us to be integrated into that. So after we looked over the first 30 years from 65 to 95, integrated into a burning house, we lost some things. So the first one was entitled Things We Lost in the Fire. This is just part two of that continuation of things we lost in the fire. So we just reviewed um, just from 65 to 95, all the things that changed about our culture, the way we behave, our patterns, our values more than anything else. I'm on the job listening in. Hey, what's up, Dwayne? All right, that's what's up. All right, so I was just giving a quick recap, sorry, about what we were talking about on the last video. We were talking about just reviewing the last 60 years since integration, and um, how how progress, if any, has been made within our community, um, and if not, what has happened in the last 60 years. So, as I said, we're talking about just the last from 60 to 95, 65 to 95, and we had a few points that stuck out. One, which was the idea of integration, as far as Brown versus the Board of Education, and how that was supposed to play out. We saw within 10 years that there was laws. In 74, another set of laws written that basically said all this desegregation or all trying to, forcefully integrate the schools. We're gonna chill on that, especially in the inner city. So basically, effectively, 10 years after the hoopla about integration, we wasn't integrated. So then we said, that's the first 10 years, and the next 10 years, we saw that between 75 and 85, yeah, Dwayne said we regressed. Okay, thanks, Grounded. Um, so we saw between 75 and 85, um, kicking it off in 75 was the women's year. So the women in our community got invited for an opportunity to work, and they took that opportunity. And then between 75 and 85, we lost our moms because our cultural value before that we discussed was different. So mom wasn't out working before. Now, I know some people are going to say that, things changed and we just kind of changed with them. But if you look at the 60 years prior to integration, our biggest problem, our biggest foe wasn't us. I'm going to leave that right there. So going the other way, the way of into the future, which is supposed to be progress, we shouldn't be the biggest problem that we face. But starting in 95, I can remember very clearly, if we start in 95, I remember um, the idea of being a gangster or just being somebody who is willing to murder somebody who looks like me with ease. Um, I remember that idea being prevalent in my generation in 95. And I remember that being overwhelmingly popular. Now, we already did the music angle. We looked at the music from 65, the number one song. In 95, I think the number one song was Coolio, Gangsta's Paradise. And we went through the words of that. And right down in there in the middle of his poem was the word anger. He said something like, "Don't arouse my anger." So, what Dr. King was saying, what he feared about us being in this burning house, is he feared that we would change. We would become angry and violent. So, starting in 95, I can remember quite vividly. Let me start looking this stuff up because I can't really show y'all what I was looking at. I wanted to do it that way, but I can't, unfortunately. So I have to. All right. So sorry about this. I gotta try to figure out how to read this. I can't like copy and paste or something, so I have to like read it out. All right, this is gonna be a journey. So just continuing on, starting in the '90s with the theme of things we lost, but also asking ourselves the question of why this was okay. Like we didn't get here by mistake. We kind of sort of chose it. And if I'm going to be 100% honest, there wasn't nobody else making the decisions but us. So, yeah, one more mad dash for this. I'm trying to get this the simplest way possible. This is a little too complicated. Cool. All right. Somewhere along where our music became toxic. Oh, why does it keep disappearing? I don't know. First one. Oh, back. There we go. All right.
Don't leave it. I'm just saying you lost your light and someone should be.
Okay. There we go. I'm back to read it. Somewhere along the way, our music became toxic and promoted the killing of our own happened around the '90s. I remember political rap, live rap, fun rap, but somewhere it switched. Right. Exactly, Dwayne. So what? Let's put this one up too. Even party rap promoted alcoholism, drug use, hypersexuality. just to see what it has become today. Right. Exactly. So boom, we in 90s, right? So we went through between 65. So in 65 was integration. So we lost community first. Second, 75, we lost mom. 85, crack, right? So crack hit, we lost dad. We either lost him by him trying to sell it, by him using it, or some other, you know what I mean? What do you call it? Related thing to the crack epidemic during that time. So we lost a lot of men. All right. So we lost dad. Now that's nine. That's what do you call it? 85. So from 85 to 95, you get this promotion of or the change in the music, like Dwayne just pointed out. But these things are not mistakenly happening. So what I want to jump on real quick is the roots. Let's get down to the roots. Share. Work for me, please. All right. Share the screen. I always forget that part. I'm sorry I'm getting this together, y'all, in the middle of it, but I'm actually starting to get in there. It's just slow. All right, so I want y'all to watch this video.
Good morning, Hank. It's Tuesday. I've been thinking a lot about this famous moment in history called the Melian Dialogue. It happened around 2,400 years ago in ancient Greece. The story stars the city-state of Athens, which is widely credited for giving us so many of our ideas about democracy.
Okay, before we get too far into it, okay, just for the people that can't see it and you're listening, the reason why I jumped back real quick is because we were able to see really easily the change between losing community and losing mom and dad out of the home, single parent households, and a community without its protector. We're able to see what that does, what that did to us. However, if I could quote somebody from the internet who responded to something that Grounded was saying about Aboriginals' plight being the victims of genocide, this person retorted to Grounded, "You sound like a sore loser." And it was, of course, for her, it was enraging. But I try to look at both sides of anything that's going on, you know what I mean? And I think being able to see both sides, even if one of them you disagree with wholeheartedly, gives you a more full perspective. it allows you to know what you need to do. So looking at both sides, how did we get to this point where in the 90s we're so violent, when Martin said we weren't that way in the beginning? 30 years prior, we weren't that way. What did we decide was okay? What changed in our ideas, in our values? What changed? And also, what was going on around us? Because we still us, right? We're practicing new ideas, but the world is still going on around us. What is ruling the world at that time? So that's what we're going to go into this Millennium Dialogue for. Okay, we're going to get some understanding on what the value system was of the people who are ruling the world today. All right, so that's this. For those that can't see us, that is the purpose of this Millennium Dialogue. So, all right, man, I confused myself. Okay. Y'all see Hank, right? Y'all see Hank, the white guy, YouTube historian. I hope y'all see that. Grounded, can you see that? All right. I'm gonna go ahead and play it. I don't know. All right, so Hank, real quick, is going to give us the background on the Millennium Dialogue, what is known as the Millennium Dialogue, and this is a little bit of philosophy for y'all. Okay, just listen.
Democracy and freedom. And Athens in the 5th century BCE really was a remarkable place, not only because it was a democracy, but also because Plato and Socrates were living and philosophizing there. Sophocles was writing Antigone and Oedipus Rex, as well as serving in elected office, and Thucydides was revolutionizing the writing of history. In fact, we know about the Melian dialogue primarily because of him. So Athens was 15 years into the Peloponnesian War, which was fought against their great enemy, the Spartans. And the island of Melos, which is about 110.
You guys know the Spartans, right? You've seen the movie, I hope. You've seen the movie. Well, these two people are fighting each other. And the island of Melos is not in the fight.
10 kilometers off the coast of mainland Greece, was neutral in the war. The Melians were closely related to the Spartans, but they didn't fight with them. And then, in 416 BCE, the Athenians sent 38 ships with 3,000 soldiers to capture the island of Melos, or else force the Melians to pay tribute. The Melians were like, hey, it's not moral to attack a people who are neutral, who pose no threat to you. You're Athens. You're the school of Greece, the cradle of justice. And according to Thucydides, the Athenians replied, the strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must. After a siege on their city, the Melians eventually surrendered, and the Athenians murdered all of the men of Melos and sold all of the women and children into slavery. And that line, the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must, has reverberated through history. Like some argue, it's the guiding principle of history, that the story of humans is of powerful people doing whatever they can to increase and defend that power, while powerless people suffer whatever they must. I think that's an oversimplification. I don't think that humans.
All right, hey, thanks. But so you get the point, right? So basically, what they saying is, and it's quite ethnocentric to say the world, they're just talking about themselves. Just like we've had 2 world wars. Supposedly, those world wars were just Europeans being warlike as they are. So what's important about the Melian dialogue is that as the person pointed out, that Athens, Greece, Greco-Roman culture period, the value system from there has made its way through time and has landed right here. We have almost the exact value system and the people who did exactly the same thing. When they came across their enemies, they just murdered them all and made other ones into slaves. So this is not like a slight on anybody. This is just what happened. And as we said in the first lesson, people, groups of people, us, a nation of people, we're not too different than the individual. Most of the things are pretty much the same, just macro and micro. So if you look at a group of people, like Martin looked at us and said, I fear for y'all because there's a complete difference in the way you are and the way they are. So I'm afraid. That's just like two people. The groups are just like two individuals. One individual is willing to act in a violent manner at a moment's notice, and almost builds themselves off of that they pride themselves on that. The other, not so much. That's not what they pride themselves on. We saw the pictures of the families. Just a second, y'all. I gotta jump off camera real quick. I'll be right back. 30 seconds, not even that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. The individual, excuse me, the individual is has a personality. They got a way of doing things, and all you're doing in human families is just multiplying. That's one commandment we got right. We just spread our idea, our way of doing things, whatever it is. So, like I said, Martin saw two different types of people. That was then, though. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about how from then to now. So, going back to this Malian dialogue, right? The people who came to be the United States, they developed their country this way. Let me share this with y'all. Come on, how do I do it again? Come on. Share screen. Teaching history. All right. And shift F7 to make it big. All right. This is just random knowledge you can get. This is not nothing special, but it is a history that kind of sort of puts us into perspective as far as where we are today. So now, this is around the time of Dred Scott, and this was around his case. A lot of people, you might know the name, it sounds familiar to you, Dred Scott, but we don't actually know what the relevance is to our life today because it was so long ago. But as I said, we're gonna review some of these things because we have lost some things in the fire, guys. We have lost some things. We already saw how in 30 years from integration, we lost community, mom and dad. Okay. The family's being burnt alive. We need to figure out how we got this way so we can unget this way. So I want y'all to read this with me real quick. Yes. So the Dred Scott, trying to make this big as possible. All right. This is the Dred Scott decision. This is your Supreme Court. The year's 1857. So it was a long time ago. Importance, though, is that when the Supreme Court makes a decision, the amount of time doesn't really matter unless they make another decision to overturn that decision. Okay, so that is the significance to our everyday life. Now, in March 1857, the Supreme Court answered a question that Congress had evaded for decades: whether Congress had the power to prohibit slavery in territories. The case originated in 1846 when a Missouri slave, Dred Scott, sued to gain his freedom. Scott argued that while he had been a slave of an army surgeon, he had lived for 4 years in Illinois, a free state, and Wisconsin, a free territory, and that his residence on free soil had erased his slave status. So he was basically saying that legally, legally, by the law that is already here, you guys made it already, right? By your standard, I should be freed, is what he was saying. Okay. All 9 justices rendered separate opinions, but Chief Justice Roger B. Taney, who served from, is that service time or his lifetime? This must be his lifetime, 1777 to 1864, delivered the opinion that expressed the position of the court's majority. Okay, so this is in terms of our government, the way our government goes, and our judges, specifically the Supreme Court judges, when they convene over a thing, they have to agree in majority whether or not a thing is constitutional. Okay, whether it violates or agrees with the fundamental framework of the country. That is what the Constitution is. Okay, it is what makes this country what it is on the root level, the DNA level. Okay, so that's their job. Now, this judge, Taney, Chief Justice Taney, he's presenting to you the opinion of the majority. Okay, most of them believe this. His opinion represented a judicial defense of the most extreme pro-slavery position. The Chief Justice made 2 sweeping rulings. The first was that Scott had no right to sue in federal court because neither slave nor free blacks were citizens of the United States. Stop right there. A lot of people in our time, today even, are questioning the status of people who were enslaved, and I'm using that word specifically, enslaved. People who were not chosen to be in the, what's the nice way to say it? The group of natives who were accepted, and anybody else that got in the way. All these people are clumped into a group together, okay, in our history. The reason why you should be paying attention to this is because they're telling you that you are not considered a citizen of the United States. That's the entire union. That's in any state. Okay? They're telling you something right there, whether you are paying attention or not. Because not everybody was enslaved. Some of these people were free, just walking around. None of them counted as citizens of the United States. You don't have any rights here. That's what they're saying. You don't count in our thing that we got going. Now, evaluate for yourself. Is that a bad thing? Remember the Malian dialogue, sorry. They said, we ain't a part of y'all. We kind of related to them over there, but we're not a part of none of what y'all doing. We're doing our own thing. That's where you were. You were free. I'm gonna go on. I ain't gonna draw them on with this. You can figure it out. So Scott had no right to sue in federal court because neither slaves nor free blacks were citizens of the United States. At the time the Constitution was adopted, the Chief Justice wrote, blacks had been regarded as beings of inferior order with no rights which the white man was bound to respect. Okay. So, and it continues. In fact, some states did not recognize free blacks as taxpayers and citizens at the time the Constitution was adopted. So that's him, putting it a little bit further, just so you understand. So we are not unclear about this. You know what I mean? He making sure that you understand him. Even if you was free and you dealt with them business-wise, you didn't have any right that I have to recognize. Remember the Malian dialogue. It basically means that might is right. That's the short. If you don't want to get too philosophical about it, might is right. If I am stronger, then I am right. Think about that. Think about the implication of saying, or a person who thinks, okay, as an individual, we're not going to expand out to the whole culture yet, but just a person, just one individual. If they think to themselves, anything that I'm stronger than, I can do whatever I want. That thing must suffer because I'm stronger than it. Just one individual thinking this way. What kind of behaviors would that individual express given the opportunity? My battery dying. I need you not to die because I need you. Shucks. All right. Would I mean I'm talking too long? All right, let me speed this up. But I want you to think about that. And while you're thinking about that, let me share something with you. So this is where they were. You don't have any rights if you're a free person. If you are a person who has been considered black. This is before color was a thing, but they considered you black. I'm not going to tell you what that means if you don't. I guess I should tell you what that means. I'll be trying to make these things short, but it ends up going long because I can't tell how much information is too much or too little. But suffice, I mean, look up the word black, y'all. Look up the word black in the English language. Look at the legal definition of it, what it means. Again, we're talking about the justices, okay? We're talking about the Chief Justice. So we ain't talking your everyday talk. These every one of these words means something. Okay, so a free black is still a black. And I know today you think, when I say the word black, you think of a person who has melanin. But look that word up, black. And maybe you might not want to say it so loud that you black and you proud after you look it up. But the meaning of it, the legal definition of it, anyone who is designated as such, you don't have no rights that we have to recognize. Second, Taney declared that any law excluding slaves from the territories was a violation of the Fifth Amendment prohibition against the seizure of property without due process of law. So not only do you not have any type of legal background or a leg to stand on, but you also are considered property at this time. The Missouri Compromise was unconstitutional, he announced, because it prohibited slavery in Louisiana Purchase north of 36 degrees, 30 feet. The Dred Scott decision was a major political miscalculation. In its ruling, the court sought to solve the slavery controversy once and for all. Instead, the court intensified sectional strife, undercut possibility of possible compromise, and the solution to the issue of slavery's expansion, and weakened the moral authority of the judiciary. So, ooh, shucks, what did I just do? Oh, I did that. So this is what the people thought at the time. Now I know it was a long time ago. So see, 1857 was so long ago that you got to be thinking, what the heck are you talking about this for, Gus? Like, what is the purpose of you talking about this? That was so long ago, 1800s, right? 1850s. But the Malian dialogue was thousands of years ago. Let me share that with y'all. That was thousands of years ago. Do you think today that the world operates with the underneath the value system of might is right? Do you think so? Okay. If you don't think so, ask any woman who has joined the military. Ask any man who has been in prison for more than 3 years. Ask one out of, no, I'm sorry. That number was something crazy. It was like 70%. I didn't forgot the darn fraction. But 70%. So 7 out of 10. So just ask 10 college-age women, 20 to 24. Find 10 random and ask them, do you think the world is run on might is right today? We got a lot of pretty words in between that. But the thing about philosophy is philosophy tells you what you're thinking about, what the roots of your thoughts are. So if the root of your thought is, if I'm stronger, I'm automatically better, I'm right. Whatever else happens, but at the end of the day, I'm right. That was the Malian dialogue. That was thousands of years ago. So do you think 1857 to 2024, a couple hundred years, do you think it has any effect on our society today? These words that the Chief Justice wrote. Let's see. Let's go forward in history. That was 1857. Let's go a little forward. Let's go to, where are we at? Where'd I go? Oh, here we go. I gotta send it to myself. All right, so all right. Come on. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm messing up. Sent the wrong thing. Sorry for the silence. Might be better at this. Here we go. That link. Inbox. Come on. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move a little bit forward in history. We want to see if these things play out. Now remember, we in 90, we talking about we in the 95 era. So from 95 to 2005, we get this boom and increase in violence. And the violence becomes such a big thing that the number one song in 95, Gangsta's Paradise, talked about how it was to live the life of a person who don't got much going for them but death. So that was the number one song. That's where our value system was in 95. So we doing 95 to 2005, and we seeing that our brothers are being wiped away in those 10 years. But how? How do we get here? Let me share this with y'all so you can see what I'm seeing. We're talking about the Malian dialogue, whether or not it has any ground or stands today in today's world. I want you to look at this photo of a mother and a son. I think they were lynched in, I want to say, was it? I want to say Mississippi, but I might be wrong. I think it was Missouri. Oh, no. It was Oklahoma. I'm sorry. It was Oklahoma. But what I want you to pay attention to is this is a postcard that somebody made with the picture. I want you to pay attention to the people on the bridge. See, it's very easy today to look back at 1911. See, this postcard was 1911. So we done jumped. We then went from 1857, Dred Scott, 1850s, I'm sorry, of Dred Scott, where he said, you don't have nothing that we need to recognize, right? This is 1911. So another 50 years, do you think that the people up here on the bridge, do you see some of them are children? Do you see that? Because, little kids like to climb on shit. That's little kids right there. Those little kids right there. That's a full-grown adult. That's a child. That's a teenager right there. Child again. Little person. Right? Grown men here. Whole crowd of people. My question is, do you think the Malian dialogue is at play here? Do you think that might is right? Might be at play here in the minds of these people? Okay, how about this? Let's try it this way. Let's try to read it. Oh, it's going to get ugly. I ain't gonna hold you. The Lynch Quilts project began with the story of Laura Nelson. When I encountered her image at the Without Sanctuary exhibit, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. The Lynch Quilts project began with the story of Laura Nelson when I encountered her image at the Without Sanctuary exhibit. Without Sanctuary exhibit was an exhibit of postcards and things of that nature that was sent during the early 1900s of images of people being lynched. And it was like a postcard, like you send a Hallmark and say, hey, happy, whatever, or I'm down in the Caribbean. Hey, look at me, I'm on the beach, something like that. People don't do that anymore. Everything is digital today. So it would basically be like sending somebody a reel in today's time. So that's what a postcard was in the early 1900s. So imagine getting a reel in your inbox of somebody hanging from a bridge. That's basically what it was. And they thought this was completely okay. So he said, I was prompted to purchase the book. It's not that in the back of my mind, I didn't consider that as a natural component of this history. I might have read that wrong. But for some reason, the story of Laura and her son stuck with me. I was mortified the day I saw the image of Laura and her 12-year-old son. Those images solidified that knowledge into realization. I knew then that I had to do something. I didn't know what the something was, but it would take 3 years to figure out what made sense for Laura's image, and until 2021 to figure out what to do about her son. So this person was inspired by what they saw in Without Sanctuary. It was a traveling exhibit. Okay, there are several accounts and versions of the events leading up to this atrocity, but what we do know is that Laura Nelson was murdered on May 25th, 1911 in Okemah, Oklahoma, side by side with her son, L.D. Lawrence, who was 12 years old at the time. There is also documentation that she had a 2-year-old daughter named Carrie in her cell when the lynch mob arrived, as well as a newborn baby girl around 2 months. Both have been lost through history. Well, you know what happened. What we do know is that on that day in 1925, a mother died with her son, and 2 daughters are missing from the historical record. There are stories that both she and he were raped, that she died protecting her son, that it was about stealing meat, and so many others. Below, there's several links to various accounts of what is written about the lynching. Okay. There are other stories of women and lynching that must also be remembered. Mary Turner, who died seeking justice for her husband who was lynched. As a result, her unborn baby was cut from her body. She had that grounded in her. She wasn't letting nobody attack her husband, so she jumped in the fight too. That sounds like something grounded would do. So they cut the baby out of her body. Or Mary Scott, twice victimized, lynched because her brother killed a white man who had raped his sister. When they arrived to lynch him, he got away and she was killed instead. For a list of recorded cases of women in lynching, please click here. You can also check out the following books, and they list a few books. I don't want y'all to get lost in that. But I do want you to think about the people on the bridge, because this is 50 years after the Supreme Court justice said, you don't count. Not for real. You don't actually count for real. What would make him say that? Why would that even be a thing? Unless, of course, his philosophy was based on another philosophy that we know well, which we find in the Millian Dialogue, which is basically, might is right. If I am stronger than you, then I am right. So the way it would play out in this last story from the website is basically somebody raped a man's sister, right? He did that because he was right. He was stronger than her. So what he did was right. That caused the black man to kill that white man because he is stronger than that white man. So that was right. But when they got there and they arrived to lynch that black man, they found a weak woman. Well, she's weak. So we're stronger. We kill her. That is right. And then they go on later to lynch the man because they are stronger. Right? So you see the people on the bridge? It doesn't really matter what happened or why her 12-year-old would be mutilated. It don't really matter if might is right. So let me share something else with you. Put something else on your brain. Is it possible that what Martin feared was what we live in today? Is it possible? So not to harp on the past, right? I want to jump to the future because I don't want y'all to think, I'm bringing y'all down, telling you sad stuff all the time. That's what Grounded tells me. I'm always bringing her down with some sad stuff about the past or some information I know, something I decided to read. So let's go a little bit forward, just a little bit. I just sent it. So 1857, long time ago. Not too relevant to today, right? All right. Let's go to a trusted source. I know how you like the trusted sources. I hope I have the comments on this. Shit. Make me small. Did it do it? Oh, it did it. Okay. Harvard Library. Confronting Anti-Black Racism Resource. at Harvard. Scientific racism. Since enslaved people were first brought to this country, promoters of anti-Black racism and white supremacy have co-opted the authority of science to justify racial inequality. A history of pseudoscientific, guys, it means fake, not something that you can weigh, measure, and prove with science, something that is fake. So pseudoscientific methods of quote unquote proving white biological superiority in flawed social studies used to show inherent, quote unquote, inherent racial characteristics still influence society today. So this was a branch of science at one time. In 1619, when enslaved people were brought to what would become the United States, justification for their enslavement were brought here too. In the 400 years since then, as those enslaved and their descendants have continued to call this country home, the justifications for their abuse and mistreatment have stayed as well. So 400 plus 1619, that puts you at 2019. Are y'all happy? You right here in the present, in your current era, where everything is lovely and beautiful, right? One of the most effective tactics used to justify anti-Black racism and white supremacy has been scientific racism. Through the years, scientific racism has taken many forms, all with the goal of co-opting the authority of science as objective knowledge to justify racial inequality. Should I read the whole thing? Should I bore you with the whole thing? Well, bottom line, Harvard said that in 2019, in the current era, there are people who try to use science to justify superiority of a particular group of people. Let me see, how can we do this one? I won't make you read all that, but this one, you gotta see it. Right. Well, the problem with that is that if you can see this skull here, it's a sketch of a phrenology sketch from 1807. At the time, let me see. I can stop sharing this one. At the time in the 1800s, as the article says, they had to come up with a reason, a logical reason for why they were doing what they were doing, just for shits and giggles, not for nothing else. But there had to be a reason for it, to justify it, because otherwise it would seem weird to just hang a person from, what do you call it, a bridge, or to just rape somebody because you have no rights that I need to recognize. It just seemed weird. So it had to be a way to get around that. It had to be a way to justify it. So scientific racism was what was used. The problem with it is that as let me share it again so I can see what I'm looking at. I'm about to point out something, you can't see it. As a branch of science, phrenology didn't go anywhere because scientifically you couldn't prove it. It didn't make sense. It sounded good, but the thing about science is that it's usually based off of math, numbers, and things of that nature that you can repeat. That's the whole idea about science, is that you can repeat the same experiment on your own with the same controls, and you should be able to get the same data. When you don't get the same data, your science is flawed. So at the time, if you see this little picture right here, they thought, well, we've done a taxonomy of animals, right? We've put animals in categories. So we should be able to do the same thing with humans, just put them in categories. Well, what are we going to base it on? Well, we can base it on the shape of their skulls. This is what the science was. Science called phrenology. From that science, we got the term Negroid, Mongoloid, and Caucasoid. This is science. They made it up. These are the divisions of mankind on planet Earth. So because they thought that this was a thing they could, do, of course it should fit, right? It should fit. And if you go somewhere else and you do the same science, you should get the same results. I saw the funniest thing. Well, to me, it was funny. I saw a guy on the internet. He was a flat earther, and he had brought a laser, and he was going to prove that the Earth was flat because he had said something about how a powerful enough laser will be able to shoot so far that it'll be able to show you that basically it's the Earth is straight or the Earth is flat or whatever. This was his design, his what do you call it? Experiment, science, right? So he goes about doing the experiment to prove that the Earth is flat, and he uses the laser. Along the way, he starts getting these weird numbers. His math wasn't adding up. So what he did was, because he's shooting the laser from one place to another place, and I think it was the amount of distance. People were saying that, because of the amount of distance, you can't tell. It seems like the Earth is curved, because after if you're looking out at the horizon, after a certain point, you just can't see anything else, right? And people are saying, well, some people think, oh, that's the curvature of the Earth. The Earth is curved. And other people were saying, no, it's flat. The reason why you can't see is just because you just can't see that far. But if I have a laser and I'm shooting at a powerful laser, that laser is going to hit exactly the target, and it's going to be straight. So the guy gets the laser, he does the experiment, he starts getting the weird numbers, right? So his experiment wasn't flawed. He just had to adjust the numbers. So when he adjusted the numbers or adjusted his target for the laser to hit, the angle of his adjustment equaled the curvature of the Earth. Science. Sorry. I know that might make people mad, but you can do the same thing. That's the beauty of science. That's the beauty of doing math and numbers and figuring out all the things, as in my culture says, the hidden things are the creative things that he got out there that you don't even know about. You don't even know to ask the question about. But when you find it, it's like that aha moment, and for us, we give glory to the Most High. That's how we do it. But everybody got their own thing. But science, that's what it is. It's the discovering of all the things that are out there already. And anyone can discover them. Anybody can do the math and figure it out. Or you can disagree with it. But in this case, they thought we can look at the shape of the skull. We can divide men into these categories. We can look at the shape of the skull and we can tell what is the advanced and what is the lower version. And the science fell apart because they weren't able to do that. They weren't able to group people in these 3 groups that they came up with. It didn't work. The funniest part is when they went to Egypt with the same science and they saw all the pyramids and stuff there. And they thought, well, these are obviously Caucasoids. So that's what they wrote down, the French, when they got there. They wrote, these are Caucasoids. But they were in Africa. So they were also kind of Negroids. So they called them Caucasoid Negroids. It made sense to them. Because the Negroids couldn't build these things because they don't have the intelligence, right? Based off of the science that we just made up. So rather than change the science, they just called them Caucasoid Negroids, the Egyptians. And then they got inside of the tombs and said, fuck. we're gonna have to redo this science because it ain't sciencing. So that science fell by the wayside. But as you see here in this Harvard paper, even though it's not scientific, there is no such thing as race. There is no such thing as race. There's no such thing as race. If there's no such thing as race, you can't have racism because there's no such thing as race. You can't have racial bias because there's no such thing as race. So the science has already proven that this is a fallacy. So then, what are you living in? What is your reality? I told Grounded about this a little while ago. She got so mad that at one time we were singing, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." In our community, we thought it was a cool thing to say until we understood what we were saying. Well, she had a similar experience with somebody called her an African American. Oh, she lost it. And rightfully so, because they tried to give her a racial designation when race does not exist. It is not scientifically found. And we know that for 300 years now. So then what's the motivation? We know it's not real. Why do people keep calling themselves these names? Why are we abiding by this thing? What's going on? As I said, we're going to look at our community, but we got to look outside of our community as well. We have to look around us and see what's going on. Because it's too late. We integrated. We're in it now. At one time, we were outside of it, victims of it, but now we're it. We're in there. So it's important that we look at our surroundings. Where the hell are we? What's going on? Shucks. I had another article on this, but you know what? I think I beat this horse dead enough. I'm not going to get into the medical bias. Not the medical bias. Not the false beliefs that Blacks can tolerate more pain, so we don't recommend pain medicine for them. We're not going to get into that one. Come on. Send. No. So Harvard already told us in 2019 that people have carried these biases through their lifetimes, right? And the Million Dialogue has already shown us that if a person or a group of people believe that might is right, then the things that they do behind that might, but they don't really see it as wrong. It's just something that has to happen. So I love bringing it to the current day. Oh, come on. All right, here we go. All right. Yeah, I said I wasn't going to do it, but Grounded hates it when I do this. I force her to learn things that make her angry. But if I know it, you're going to have to know it. False beliefs. This is ABC News. That's for the people who need it to be official. It's ABC News. It's this tab, right? I'm sharing this tab. Yes. Okay. ABC News. False beliefs of med students may lead to racial bias in pain management, study says. This is by ABC News. It is April 4th, 2016. That's within the last 10 years. This is still scientifically a fact. You need 10 years to be able to research something. This is within the same 10 years. Some white medical students may have a racial bias that affects how they assess the pain of Black patients, according to a new study. Now, we've already assessed, or we've already come to the conclusion that race is not real. We already know this. And yet, we're dealing with racial bias. Something that's not real, and we're dealing with the bias of the not real thing. A study published today in the Proceedings of National Academy of Science Journal builds on a growing body of evidence that has found that when it comes to pain management, Black patients are sometimes treated differently than white patients. Lead author Kelly Hoffman, a psychological doctoral candidate at the University of Virginia, told ABC News that the researchers wanted to understand the factors that were at work in exacerbating this difference on how Black and whites are treated. Jump over these commercials. Okay. The team asked 222 white medical students from the University of Virginia to read 2 mock medical cases about a Black patient and a white patient and rate their perceived pain on a scale of 1 to 10. Then they had the medical students weigh in on the statements regarding biological differences between the races. The supposed quote unquote facts about biological differences were nearly all fake and included false statements such as Blacks' nerve endings are less sensitive than whites. It means you don't feel pain. Black skin is thicker than whites, and Blacks have a stronger immune system than whites. That last one might be a little true. Of the 15 statements, 4 were true. These statements were that Black patients were more at risk for heart disease and stroke, had denser bones than whites, and were at risk to contract spinal cord diseases. I'm not going to read all this to y'all. The point being, in the last 10 years of your lifetime, your medical industry, the people at the top, the people that got all the AMRR, whatever the heck they letters behind their name, they got them all. Okay. They drive the Benzes. They are the people that you say you want your child to be when your child grows up, right? Those people, they currently believe that your skin is thicker, your nerves endings don't really feel pain. Not like that. Not really. That's in your current time. Now, in your current time, if they believe this in your current time, do you think that the ideas of the Million Dialogue, the idea that might is right, may have something to do with it? Do you think? And more importantly, is this a value that we should be espousing? Yeah, we're integrated into it. We in it now. But is this a value that we should be espousing? Is this something that we should be espousing? Something we should be doing? Because we have an option now. You free now, right? So if you're free, you have the option to espouse any idea you want. It's up to you. Let's go back a little bit. This should be really short.
In October 1669, The Virginia Assembly enacted a law removing criminal penalties for people who killed slaves that resisted authority. That practice would not be considered murder because the quote premeditated malice unquote element of murder could not be formed against one's own property. In the following years, Virginia continued to reduce protection for slaves. In 1723, the Assembly removed all penalties for the killing of slaves. That meant that an enslaved person could be killed for an offense as minor as picking bad tobacco. In effect, enslavers could kill enslaved people with impunity in colonial era Virginia. Laws in the other colonies were also weak when it came to protecting the lives of slaves. Following the American Revolution, many states created penalties for killing slaves. But the loophole permitting the killing of an enslaved person during, quote, correction or to prevent resistance remained. As a result, slave owners were rarely punished for killing enslaved.
Please pay attention to the wording. You could have been killed for resisting. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you've been told.
Enslaved people throughout the history of slavery in America.
That was it. Cool. So at one time, they put it on the books. They put the laws on the books that allowed your life to be taken because you were considered property. We already decided, we already covered the fact that the idea can live well past the time the idea is presented, and even past the point where the idea has been debunked. We just read an article from 2016 talking about racial bias when race is not even real. It's not a real concept. It is not one founded in truth. It's one that was founded in lie. And lies don't stand against the truth. So, since we're going to deal with some truth, let's look at a piece of truth. Something that's can't be denied. So here we are in the present day, the last 10 years, and we're living in a world or within a society by choice that continues to use made up words that were used at one time in order to express power over you, over groups of people. But the science came out and the science said that's not true. But it was ignored all the way up into what was the article? When they say this article was written? False beliefs, 2016. So we're all the way up to 2016. And medical students with a bunch of doctoral accolades believe that the black patient's skin is thicker. And therefore they don't feel pain. That's exactly like the Virginia law. You can be killed because you're resisting. Now, of course, that law's not on the books no more, right? We've got other laws that have come behind that and made that null and void. So, of course, you can't be killed today for resisting, right? Let's deal with the truth. Because the thing about the truth is you can scientifically deal with the truth. You don't have to like the truth. It's just sitting there. But the beauty of it is that the Most High allows us to be able to get into the truth. We can learn it. And become one with it. You know, it's an option for us. We can get into the truth if we want. Just like we've been living in this lie. All right. So the belief was that you're property, and as property, you don't have any rights that we need to recognize. Okay. That was the belief. Then it went to, okay. We'll count you as one of us, right? That's what it says on paper, supposedly. But the practice, at least up until 2016, the practice of modern medicine, the great modern medicine, the practice is, you're not really fully human, not like me. You're different. You don't really feel pain like that. Today, let's deal with the truth. Because the truth is good, yeah.
Lupita's results contained something I'd never seen before. When we examined her mitochondrial DNA, the genetic fingerprint passed down from mother to daughter across generations, we found that she carries DNA from the oldest maternal haplogroup, a very ancient branch of the mtDNA tree, just adjacent to what scientists call the mitochondrial Eve, the most recent woman from whom all living humans today descend. When mitochondrial Eve was walking around, there were no human beings alive outside of Africa. Everybody was black in the whole world.
I predate race.
You predate race. Yeah.
That's dope.
Okay, so if you didn't get it, Lupita's DNA has within it the information that goes all the way back to as far as they can count people. Doesn't mean there wasn't people before that. Just means as far as we can count, just doing the numbers, just doing the math with our DNA, that is science. Easily, you can do your own research over there in your part of the world. You'll still come back with the same thing. Good old truth. In truth, Lupita has within her the information to make everybody on the planet. Everybody. If her DNA has, let me see, where am I at on the camera? Okay. All right. Here we go. It's reversed. All right. So this is Lupita. Her DNA goes all the way back to the very first that we can count, right? So from her, you can make something else, something that's less than this, because she's already at the top. Her DNA has everything. She can make something that's less. So let's make it simple for you. Okay, let's make it easy for you. Am I sharing this page? I'm not sharing. I'm gonna share my screen. Sorry. Share my screen. There you go. All right. I love how she said, I predate race. Because we've already established that race ain't even real. That's not a real thing. That's something that somebody made up in order to bolster their power structure that they had set up, that they made up. Okay. So, can you see my screen? Yes. Okay. You see my screen. So, okay. Is that not? I'm on the wrong screen right now. Oh, it's opening up. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's opening up in a different screen. I hate Bing. Bing is stupid. Stupid Bing search engine thing. Okay. Jesus. You're belaboring my point, thingy. Okay. What that means is that this woman can make all other women, because all you have to do is take away from what she has. If you genetically, if you take away from what she has, you will get a lesser version of her. So step on some toes. If you start with this, I see what I'm saying. Okay, yeah. If you start with this, all right, fill in the blank. Oh, y'all not. It's not doing it. Hold on. All right, so this is what I'm sharing. If you start with this, if you start here, but go here, it's not sharing it. Okay. Being a jerk. Huh. Oh, I could do that. You can start here and go here and make here. But that is only because you're taking away what's there. You're starting here and you take away, you can make what's less there. You might not like it, but that's the truth. Lupita can make everybody, but everybody can't make a Lupita. You simply do not have what she has available. It's just not there. That is the truth. Do with that what you may. Here's something to lighten the mood. I'll share this with y'all. Oh, wait, I gotta send it to you. I didn't send it. Did I send this? No. All right. How do I send it? The browser has blocked your screen. Click screen icon to address bar, then reload the page. I don't know what that means. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna present this little bit of this last couple of slides, and then I'm gonna get out of here because I've been on here way too long. My internet is just not working. It doesn't want to work for me. Come on, what's happening? Reload. Yeah, I know I sent it. Oh, send it again. Yeah, it's there twice. Of course. Come on. Okay, so I'll share this with y'all. Then I'm gonna get out of here. Okay. So you guys should, I hope you guys see what I'm saying. Okay, good. Yeah. Business Insider. All right, so this is funny that it's in Business Insider, but you're gonna get why. It's gonna make sense in a second after I explain this, why this article is in Business Insider. But I'm taking this article from Business Insider, and they're talking about psychopathy and where in our society do we find people who we would deem as psychopaths. Now, I guess I can go without doing the definition of psychopath, like literally, you guys can look that up. One of the main things that stand out about them, though, I will say, is the lack of empathy, meaning that they're not able to see themselves as the other person. So when it comes to doing harm to other living things, they don't see themselves as actually doing harm to said thing because they're not able to empathize or feel what that entity or thing must be feeling. So The reason why this is in Business Insider is going to become apparent to you in a second. But I want to, before I do that, I also want to get this clip for you real quick. Hopefully it doesn't play the whole thing. Don't play it. Don't play it. I don't like Bing at all. I guess this is what came with the computer or whatever, but I really don't like it. Okay. So here's the article, Business Insider. Psychiatrists studied 400 movies to find the most realistic psychopath. Here are their 6 key takeaways. So, okay, here we go. You got a good definition here. Psychopath. Where'd it go? Oh, come on with the ads. Psychopathy, loosely defined, is a combination of cold-heartedness and violence. So, okay, the most extreme psychopaths may kill without remorse, mutilating victims with as much emotion as you or I might brush our teeth. So a psychopath is someone who is disconnected from the idea of feeling something. Okay? Remember the people on the bridge? Do we got to go back to them? I think y'all get it. I got to go back to them. But remember these people? Right? If they're doing this as a reel, they're sending this as a reel. They inboxing a friend from Oklahoma. They're sending this. Both the sender and the receiver can't possibly have empathy for this mutilated 12-year-old, right? There's a whole group of them up there, even the little kids. So these psychiatrists wanted to find out who on film represented this version, this psychopathy, this psychopath. Okay, this is known as classic or idiopathic psychopathy, but sometimes the disorder is more covert, as with some manipulative smooth talkers who aren't necessarily violent. So that means that you could be a psychopath and you don't actually necessarily have to be like a stab you in the face type, psychopath. In 2019, a Belgian psychiatry professor, Samuel Lestedit, wanted to find out which movie characters embodied psychopathic traits best. Lestedit called on 10 of his friends to help him watch 400 movies over the course of 3 years. 3 years. Jeez. The film spanned nearly a century from 1915 to 2010. When the team finished watching all the films, they found 126 psychopathic characters. Here's a breakdown of their findings. Okay. They decided, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. They decided, out of all those movies they watched, that this character, Anton, from the movie No Country for Old Men, was actually the most realistic psychopath. So even though there were other people on the movie list, there's like I think this guy from a movie that was way before our time. But let me see. There's another one that's a little bit more recent. People know his face. You know that guy. Jason. Well, some of the young people might not know, but anyway. So yeah, there's people. They went through all the movies, right? Um, that was the lady from, I forgot the name of that movie, but anyway, they went through all these movies. But the important thing is they thought this guy, his character, they said that is what a psychopath is like. Okay, so let's watch this guy. And remember, what we're paying attention to, what they said was the ability to disconnect from your action. The psychopath does not see themselves as doing a bad or wrong thing because they can't see you. They don't see you. Think about that. Mm. My man said, if the rule that you follow, your browser has lost connection to your screen share audio, try sharing your screen. Oh, I'm glad I stopped it there because it says you guys can't hear me no more, or you couldn't hear the audio. He said, if the rule that you followed brought you here to this point where I'm sitting across from you with a shotgun with a suppressor on it, what good was the rule? Does it sound familiar? If what you're doing, no matter what it is, no matter what your religion is, your way of life, whatever you pick, whatever it is that you're doing, if that thing leads you to the other end of a barrel, what good was it? This is the mind of a person who these psychiatrists say is the most psychopathic character. Is there anything about his words that sound familiar to what we did earlier in this lesson? Let's see if they let us finish. They might stop us from playing it. The reason why that movie was well directed is because what he shows you, right, is that in that moment, that phone ringing at that moment was shocking, right? Any person obviously on the other end of that barrel of that gun is gonna be like, oh shit, right? But what the hell is that? Oh my God. I already hit stop sharing, so that should stop sharing. But it didn't. All right, now it's done. What the director was able to show you is Anton's reaction. Anton's reaction was completely empathetic, not unempathetic. Okay, because anybody else would have reacted like, "Oh shit," or been shocked, right? You would have been like, that the phone even rang. He had to actually sit there and think about what you would have been thinking about as the phone rang. He had to contemplate it, like, oh, you were shocked at the phone ringing because you thought that was me shooting you, but that wasn't. And then he shoots him. Completely disconnected from the action. And the most important part is they're completely disconnected from the victim because they don't see their action as something that is wrong. Could it be because might is right? Again, this may be where we are, but this ain't where we have to be because y'all free. You can espouse any idea you want. You can choose to be whatever you want. And I'm going to end it on this one because I don't want y'all to be like, oh, he always talking that sad stuff and making us angry and making us feel sad and stuff. So I'll make sure I say something happy for the people that need to be happy. Come. Send. All right. Here's another science journal. I like these little science journals. Get out of here. All right. As I said, we have a choice. Martin was worried about us because he said, we're not like them. And they're very violent. And they're very disconnected from their violence. They are able to commit violence and not see it as something that is connected to them. Okay? He was worried about us because we're different. We were different. Our value system was different. So I don't want you to think that, oh, it's all lost. It's all, I forgot what Grounded always say. She says, I'm always talking fire and brimstone. Like it's all bad. It's not all bad. All right. This is from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. Peaceful societies are not utopian fantasy. They exist. Okay. The ancestral tribes of the Iroquois lived in constant fear of each other and of societies further afield. Archaeological evidence shows that they constructed high stockades around their villages for protection. Then the Mohawk, I never known how to pronounce this. I've always pronounced this as Oneta, but I don't actually know how to pronounce this word. I think it's Oneta, but I could be wrong. Onondaga and Cayuga and Seneca transformed themselves into a union of cooperating neighbors. According to the legend, they planted a great white pine and buried their weapons of war beneath it, symbolizing the adoption of new norms, values, and intertribal relations based on peace. Excuse me. We could tap the knowledge of how successful transformations from war to peace operate and apply these guided. Oh, sorry. Could we tap the knowledge of how successful transformations from war to peace operate and apply these guiding principles globally? Could emulating the features of existing non-warring systems provide insights and methods for turning back the doomsday clock? That is the clock that's what do you call it, for people that are counting down to this atomic doomsday, when everybody lets off their missiles at the same time and kills 75% of the human life on the planet. That's what you're. That is the people who we've integrated into. That is their value system. The mere existence of tribes, nations, and other social systems comprised of non-warring neighbors demonstrates that living with war is possible. Living without war, is possible. Historically and anthropologically documented peaceful social systems include, among others, tribal peoples from Upper Xingu River Basin in Brazil, Malaysian Orang Asli societies such as Batek, Chuang, and Semai, and the Swiss cantons once united the 5 Nordic nations and the European Union. I just hit that by mistake, sorry. The Orang Asli societies are some of the most peaceful cases known to anthropology. If you just want to be, just for fun, look these people up. I thought this was completely amazing, just how they live their lives. But they are known as the most peaceful people in the world, having no history of feuding or warring. The Chuang language, peep this, the Chuang language lacks words for aggression, war, crime, quarreling, fighting, or punishment. When confronted with aggressiveness or threats, they immediately flee, since flight has normally been their response to violence. So what stuck out to me was not having the word for it. I'm gonna highlight that part. Not having the word for it. The reason why that's important is because, again, this is all ideas, guys. All this is that we're talking about is ideas. Martin had an idea that being integrated into the society would work for us. And then he saw into the future, how this would look. And he thought, this is not good because we're two different people. We have two different ideas about what is normal in life. And the idea of the other people is to subjugate and commit violence against. And that's totally normal because their value system was might is right, but ours was not. So when they say that their language lacks the words for that, there's no word for it in their language, that's deep. Because that means that they're not thinking about that. It is literally the opposite of what we read in Coolio's words from Gangsta's Paradise, where he said, "Don't arouse my anger." It's the opposite. Because they don't even have the word for it. So then, because there's no thought, there's no action that can be associated with it. Or there's much less action that can be associated with it. The proof is in their society existing in time without war. That's the proof. And that's the truth. If we don't have these ideas in us, and we don't practice these ideas, and we don't even have words to describe these ideas that we find to be repulsive, they lead to repulsive action. If we don't have that, then we don't do that. And then maybe what Martin saw, we can undo. Because guys, we lost some things in the fire. We lost our community, we lost our brothers, we lost our sisters. I didn't even go over sisters. I just did brothers, and that was 2 hours. I didn't even want to touch sisters. I'm gonna leave that for maybe Grounded to do. But we lost some things in this fire, in this house that we got integrated into that was on fire. We lost some things. And it's up to us to choose. Just like I just read, there's peaceful societies that do exist in today's world. They choose not to use words that exemplify values that are counterproductive for human growth. All right, that's it, guys. Be safe.